Now we are moving to our next category of questions, which is about market access and regulatory. So the first question, what I'm asking is from, it's a mix from two startups. So we have joined a question from two startups. The first startup is Road Boards Private Limited, and second one is Hawaii Adda Aerial Innovations. So Kiran and Gitesh Kumar, these are the people who have asked this question. The question is, how can we align our startups with government initiatives and secure defense contracts, including navigating regulatory approvals for selling drones to armed forces? And at what stage the product development should we seek regulatory guidance and from whom?
So I think as far as defense is concerned, you really do not have a regulatory constraint similar to the type certification that is needed in the civil space. And in terms of approaching defense, I think there are various industry-facing arms of the defense forces. Like, for example, Army has Army Design Bureau. Similarly, Air Force and Navy also have certain research arms that are meant for collaboration with the industry. They could be first port of call. Apart from that, I think in general, they float a lot of opportunities in the form of RFPs, requests for proposals, or request for information. That's another vector to participate in opportunities on the defense side. There is this very interesting program akin to what DARPA does in the US, which is IDEX, which is another vector where they float a lot of problems that they have and want solutions for, and startups can go and pick the problems they want to work on and try and find a solution for them for that. And then that particular initiative also has the room for somebody to push their innovation. And if there is something where you think you've innovated something really nice, you can present it as a vector there, and maybe that vector can get picked up by them as a problem to be working towards, or something to enable in terms of induction in the forces. So I think we are in the golden age of working with the defense forces. I think this kind of flexibility options never existed in the past. The kind of this is sort of a redundant question now. This was a real question when we started, right? Like, how do we really do this? Now there are so many avenues and well publicized avenues that are being tracked by various incubators across the country as well. Various incubators across the country are part of evaluation of some of these schemes, etc. So I think we are in a very, very phenomenal time and age for young companies to build technology for the defense forces. Having said that, it's not going to be a cakewalk when it comes to the other side of the deal, which is investments, etc., etc. Though that's an area, both hardware and other areas, it still remains a challenge. And the other very important message that I usually share is that I think we are at a place in our country where we should not be building Me Too products. I make drones, and everyone makes drones. I think it's just value destroying without creating any intellectual property in the country. I think we cannot have a very commoditized growth in our country. We need to have high value growth as a nation, and high value growth will only come when we build technology which is innovative, which is differentiated, which has a right to exist, a reason to exist, because it's solving customers' problem in a way that was never thought of before. And I think in IdeaForge, for that, we use a very simple expression. The test for us to go and do something is usually, are we building the world's first or the world's best? And I think that's something which is very important, because forces are hungry of that. Like, when there is a war tomorrow, they are only going to win because what we have is superior to what the other side has, right? There's unlikely that the arbitrage of not having the same tech will exist. We'll both probably have the same tech, but it's just our ability to deliver slightly more than the other, right? Like how they compare fighter jets or planes, right? This guy can fly 100 kilometers more than this guy. And that kind of a thing is what ultimately superiority is all about, right? So I think that can only happen when we dig deeper in technology and build something which is differentiated.
We have another question from Utesh Gautam, Drivo-Meet Technologies. His question is how to address the concerns regarding the Indian drone industry's heavy reliance on imports and how to improve our indigenous drone manufacturing capabilities.
Abhishek, can you just quickly repeat the question for me, please?
Okay. How to address the concerns regarding the Indian drone industry, heavy reliance on imports, and how to improve our indigenous drone manufacturing capabilities.
I think the concern around imports is essentially the specific reason why I said what I said just prior to that. If we are, merely going to, so imagine like somebody is going to build a motor, and if we're just merely copying the motor that we got from China, the only reason why anybody would buy it is because it's cheaper than what's available outside, right? I mean, unless and until there is an embargo in place. Therefore, that becomes very, very challenging. I think to meet that cost without the volumes attendant, it's going to be very challenging. And therefore comes in the role of innovation, even in component building in the country, that we need to make sure that when we are attacking and building a subsystem, we build something innovative that can derive more value for the company who's building it and can deliver differentiated outcomes for the company who's going to adopt that component and technology. So I think uh, the only way to address this gap is to build good technology. Good technology will ensure that despite the price that technology is adopted, and when you adopt technology despite the price, both parties win, because the party which is delivering the technology which is differentiated can gain more value out of it, and that value can be used to build even better technology, because you have more money now available to do research and development. On the other hand, if you have um, uh, OEMs who are building technology by integrating subsystems, then we get to deliver something more meaningful to the end customer. So that combination is where ultimately the mix lies. So one is building innovative technology, and I think apart from building innovative technology, uh, building something very hard, where we believe that India will benefit in the long term, and building something which has more intellectual property component than hardware component. Merely focusing on a motor or a carbon fiber rod is not going to be sufficient, because these are commoditized technologies and the room for improvement is very low, and the intellectual property there is not that high. But let's say building communication systems, building image intelligence systems, building application layers, which will unlock the interpretation of the scene better than anybody else out there. Many such value adding layers will improve the amount of intellectual property and indigenization that we do in our country. Eventually, we are all going to get limited by the natural resources we have. We can't make everything here. We probably don't have natural resources for a few things. So there is no way that we will be able to build those things or mine those things in India. But apart from that, I think if we focus initially on high intellectual property, subsequently the volumes and the reason for people to buy from us, the rest of the world to buy from us, will become more apparent, and we'll have greater growth in the overall component ecosystem in the country.
So, Ankit, we have a next question coming from Karan Goyal from Sarang Shakti Private Limited. So his question is, how do you evaluate the current drone ecosystem, and what are the prospects for small startups in aerial surveillance, inspection, and mapping services?
I think a very tiny fraction is actually building real intellectual property in the country, and that's what I would say is an area that I feel we need to really work hard on as an industry. That we build things which are useful and differentiatedly useful to the end customer. Otherwise, we really have no right to win in the market. And I think, irrespective of the domain, one has to deeply think of a problem that we are solving uniquely. It may be the same problem that everyone's solving, but we have a different way of doing it, and therefore it's more efficient. It will be able to deliver better efficiency of delivering that role to the customer, and it's been built on a very well thought through stack of technologies that nobody else will be able to easily just come and say that I can also do it, or I can also do it. Like, we need to solve harder problems, and there are many use cases which have not even started, particularly the application layer, in the sense that perhaps it's relatively easier to make a middling performance drone. Everyone can do it. Cutting edge of performance, where literally physics is the limit of what's possible, is obviously hard, and it's hard in every business. Even in all commodity businesses in the world, you will find the Apples and Samsungs of the world building cutting edge technology that's pushing the boundary of what's possible every year for us, right? So one is that building cutting edge performance. The second is building cutting edge reliability. If there is an area in the industry where there is a concern on reliability, can we think of something out of the box there? Or building for autonomy. I think that's the other area which is going to be very critical, where there are two portions of autonomy. One is operational autonomy, which I believe is the usual substitute for autonomy in the drone industry, where people feel that just making the operations autonomous is autonomous enough. But our view is that making the outcome autonomous, or the outcome to be delivered without human intervention or effort, is actually more important, because the man otherwise never gets out of the loop, or the person doesn't get out of the loop. So therefore, to get the person out of the loop, you need automation in both sides. And therefore, there is a lot of room for innovation in very, very specific problem areas, specific use cases. And when we build differentiation there, and we build a very compelling body of work there, we can potentially get really, really good market traction as well. That can be the fissure that allows you to do everything. Otherwise, everyone's basically, if you don't have a right to exist anywhere in one place, usually you don't have a right to exist anywhere. And many people start very horizontally, but ends up being that they can't, clear the first barrier itself, because incumbents are anyways doing quite well in many of those segments. So just some thoughts that I can share, but is there a perfect formula or an answer? I don't really have an answer ki ye kar lo, it'll be a large business.